Hello everyone, I am Mercedes Castillo, an immigration attorney here in Los Angeles, and I'm here with one of my staff members, Victor Castro. We wanted to do a quick update on what's going on in immigration law, so I'm happy that Victor was able to join us. We've been seeing a lot of stuff in the news. There's been a lot of announcements on some changes in asylum law, so we just wanted to talk to you and share some thoughts with you, some updates, and anything else.
Yeah. Oh, you're expecting me to start? Yeah, keep it going. I guess for me today was I try to ignore as much as possible. We do work in immigration. It is difficult, especially because it hits home. A lot of you hear the stories directly from the clients and stuff, and the horrendous environments that they're put in, and the struggle that they go through to get here. And then you have to see pictures on Facebook of all these kids incarcerated. It's extremely hard. But today I was listening to Huckabee's press release, and I think I had it playing in the background. I got to stay in touch with what's going on out there somehow. And there was something that she said that really irked me. Like when she started. Well, everybody's focused on the biblical reference, and I know you brought up was because what was his name?
So Jeff Sessions, right, had come out a couple of days ago saying that under Romans 13, people should obey the laws that their government is enacting, right? And this particular part of Scripture has always been used to justify things like slavery or other types of laws that are discriminating. And so we're seeing all these people take to the streets. I know there was an action here in Los Angeles tonight, and I know that they're planning more and more protests and actions and sit-ins and play dates at senators' offices because people are really upset at how we're treating young children at the border and how we're separating families. And so I know that they're making these statements to try to justify the reasons that they're doing all these things and the reasons why they're separating immigrants. And so I think that's where that came from, right? The Huckabee comments is sort of a piggybacking off a lot of other things that are sort of egregious. They're happening. I think it's ongoing, and it's been happening since this administration took over. But like in the last month, we've heard Trump call people animals. We've heard about some sort of reform taking place. There are some bills that are going to be introduced in the next few weeks. Jeff Sessions, who's the Attorney General, and people need to understand that because there is a relationship between how the courts in immigration are administered, right, under Article 3, and how courts are normally in the United States supposed to have precedent. You go to court, you try to interpret laws, cases come up, you fight them, right? And as you go along, right, you make law. You can't come in and just say, well, you know what, if you were the victim of domestic violence, we're just not going to let you apply for asylum anymore. That's not going to be good enough. We're going to set these new requirements and make it 20 times harder for you to apply for asylum. So those types of things are happening right now. The law is changing because one or two people says that the law should change, as opposed to the regular course of business, which is people go to court, they fight, they litigate, they interpret the rule of law, and then we come up with some sort of agreement on how we're going to go forward. I know that the DHS director, or the person that's running USCIS, has now said that they're going to start running prints for people who are residents or citizens to try to see if there's any way that they lied about something on their citizenship application, because they are doing what's called DNATS committees. These committees are designed to take people's citizenship away. And so we're just looking at all these different attacks, right, on our communities, on immigrants, on families, on victims of domestic violence, on pretty much anyone who has ever suffered harm. and it's very discouraging, right?
Are those the loopholes that Huckabee was talking about? Because I know she kept on mentioning loopholes, and I just couldn't understand what she was referencing. So now that you're bringing that up, it goes into like, so if she's trying to say, right, blaming the Democrats for not sitting at the table, which is, or coming to the president and sitting at the table to discuss these immigration policies, you know, so it goes into like they're trying to change how the law actually works.
Right. I mean, I honestly don't know what she's talking about in terms of loopholes, right? I think that the way that the law is set up, it's always been designed to only allow a certain amount of people in, right? Mm-hmm. And so when they talk about loopholes, and any of my colleagues will know that anytime you have immigration reform, someone has to pay the price, mm-hmm. right? It's not like you can just say, okay, well, if you pay your taxes and you don't have a criminal record and your children are in school, like if you set up requirements and people meet those requirements, then hey, they're gold and now they can become citizens or residents, right? It has never been that easy. Even when amnesty came along with Reagan or some of the reforms with Clinton, all of those came at a price, right? And so there will be some people who will have to pay that price, and some people will get removed, and some of those requirements are going to get stricter. So I don't know if that's what she means by loopholes, right? I don't know that anyone in some of these immigrant communities would be able to even go through one of those loopholes, right? Because they're just so difficult and so rare.
Yeah, because I don't even know about any loopholes. Because I'm like, and I'm over here, working with you, and we're filing.
We're trying to find the loopholes. There's no.
We're
loopholes.
trying and we don't find it. So I don't know what she's talking about. But I guess it goes into like again, like the thing that irked me was those statements that she was doing, right? Separation of illegal families, alien families is the product of the same legal loopholes that Democrats refuse to close. And she continues to like beat that into every statement she was saying, at least within, the first 6 to 10 minutes. And in my head, I was like I know everybody focuses on the biblical stuff, but I stepped back and I was like, is this president using the situation, using these kids as what do we call it? Like a tool to bring the Democrats to the table for negotiation, like in business, like when we're talking about contracts and all that stuff.
I don't think that that's what they're doing. I honestly think that this is all about money, right? Uh-huh. The article that I posted on Facebook about Walmart, the old Walmart being used now to house more children, and all the money that is required to sustain that type of environment, right? They're trying to build tent cities in Texas for some of this overflow, and the 10,000 number is an accurate number. Like there are a bunch of websites out there that have already shown that there are about 10,000 children in custody right now, and it's really sad, right? So I don't think it's like, okay, we're gonna do this because we want you to actually come to the table and meet with us. I think that this administration really hates immigrants, wants to teach anyone who even has a remote thought about coming to the United States that they shouldn't, because this is what's going to happen to them. And that they keep saying that too. And some of the clips and the sound bites that I'm listening to, they're saying that this is to prevent people who want to come to the United States from doing so. Right? We're going to treat these people so poorly that no one, and I think that's the loophole that she's talking about. She's saying that up until now, right, and I've spoken to people on different sides of this, up until now, if you were someone who was claiming that you had suffered some sort of violence, you would come to the border, ask for help, and then they would give you a ticket to come in, and wow, now everything, is going to be great for you. I just don't think that that's the reality. And I honestly think that a lot of our clients, for example, who are fleeing these situations, leave their homes, leave their cars, leave all their personal belongings, come with a little backpack and some of their important documents. Who does that, right? Like, unless it's really some sort of fear or something that could happen if they stay behind. And some of these stories that we hear are just really, really scary, traumatic things that are happening, right?
So it's like they're trying to deny folk asylum, and I'm like, that's one of the myths, especially now working in immigration and stuff. ISAP and all these programs that have been institutionalized for the undocumented population who are seeking asylum, right? Like they have to go and visit an officer and let them know where they're living. They wear a bracelet that knows where they're at. Remember that one
It goes
client?
off in court, right? Because
court.
they didn't charge it or it's not charging properly,
and
right?
and the judge gets mad and then wants to kick them out. So it's like that's the myth. So it's not like they get the golden ticket. They can roam freely around here, and then get lost in the system. They're still followed by ICE officers. They have to report. They have to go to court, and they have to fight their asylum case. So it's like the whole concept of it is just I don't understand it. So are they trying to like? I was reading something that's saying that they're trying to build courts at the border.
Right.
So physical immigration court?
So a few months ago, that was one of the ideas that was thrown out there, right? Trump and the administration want to tell people at the border, I'm sorry that you're afraid to go back to your country. You're going to have court in Mexico. There's going to be a judge on this side of the border, right? And then there's going to be a court set up in Tijuana or wherever, and you'll be able to plead your case there. If you win, you get to come. If you lose, you stay wherever you are. And there's just so many politics at play, right? Because, for example, the Mexican government can't say that they are unwilling or unable to protect their citizens, right?
Yeah.
And they will turn the other way and say that's just not happening. Mm-hmm. People who are suffering from LGBTQ violence or domestic violence or indigenous violence, right? That's just not happening in our country. So no one wants to take accountability for what is happening in these countries. The United States will never admit that the problem with gangs in Central America is an offset of what was going on here, right? The same people that are training our police departments here in the United States are training the police in all over South America and Central America. So we're part of the problem, but we're not going to take responsibility for it. And when all these people are coming here knocking on our door, we're going to turn them away because they're not our problem.
Or we're going to hold them at the border. And
make money.
And you bring an important fact. It's like, the Mexican government, because we do have clients fleeing LGBT coming here. If we're saying that they're going to have to fight their case at the border or there, they're still technically in Mexico. They're still in harm's way because if they're fleeing like an abuser, if they're fleeing someone who's threatened their lives and they're at the border, I'm like, these folk are going to be able to like get them. And then what happens then?
Right.
While they're in the Mexican border, like fighting for their case. And we know that asylum cases are not like a one-day thing. Like we've prepped for those, it takes months. It takes preparation. It takes gathering enough information and evidence. It's not easy just to go in there and say, I was threatened by a gang and I need asylum and you get asylum. You have to prove that fear exists. So it's just, I don't understand I think it's mostly because a lot of people who don't work in our industry or in immigration, I wouldn't call it industry, in immigration, don't see that every day. Or like they read about it, we see clips about it, but like on a daily, it gets to you. And then when people start talking about, make it sound like it's something easy that they can just obtain. It's like, no, like there is a process, and sometimes the process is not on the side of our clients. They're in the side of the government because the government, sorry about that, is doing everything they can to prove that you're lying, that to disprove and take away any and all credibility.
So, this is what I want to know from people who are watching, our clients, our supporters, our allies. How should we be steering this conversation, right? Like, because this is just going to keep getting worse. And And for my clients anyway, I want to make sure that they understand how this all sort of plays out. You have a case in the Ninth Circuit established since 2000 that someone who is a victim of domestic violence is part of a particular social group. And when they say, I can't go to the police in my country and tell them that my husband is abusing me, because they won't investigate, they won't arrest him. It's going to keep happening. It's a domestic issue, right? It's not something that's taken seriously. It's been decided in circuits all over the country that this is a protected category for people who are fleeing these types of situations. And so with one sweep, right, we say, nope, not anymore. You have to show a little bit more, and we're going to make it so much more difficult for you, right? So if I have a client right now that has her upcoming interview at the asylum office and it's based on domestic violence, she will be denied under the new rubric that Jeff Sessions has put out there, right? So she's going to get denied. She's going to get referred to immigration court. In immigration court, she's going to get denied because immigration courts have to follow the Attorney General. She's going to appeal to the BIA, the Board of Immigration Appeals. She's going to get denied there too because this particular decision wiped out all BIA cases, and she's going to have to go to the Ninth Circuit, and she's going to have to litigate whether Jeff Sessions did the right thing legally, right, and took away her protection. So we're talking about something that should have been adjudicated in a few weeks, right, is now going to turn into a 10-year battle for this woman to be able to stay here with her son and not have to return to a place where her husband would surely kill her, right? So that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. But more than, and Victor knows this because he's been working with me for a long time, but more than like, what does it mean? What are the updates? What are people saying? What did Obama say in Germany about God, right? What does that mean for our clients? What does that mean for us as community members? How do we fight it? Do we just go home and watch whatever we're watching on Netflix, right? Or do we do something about it? So I know that myself and others are going to try to organize an action for June 29th at the federal building to talk about separation of families, right? We want to be able to educate each other about what the rule of law is, work together, work with other organizations. I know that everyone, all of my colleagues they're all probably in San Francisco right now at the AILA conference. And so I'm sure they're going to be coming up with some ideas on the legal forefront of what can be done there. But I encourage you guys to look at things like the situation with the woman who was on the bus from Bakersfield to Vegas. They got stopped at a checkpoint. ICE came on board the bus and started announcing that they wanted to check everyone's papers. And she stood up and she said, no, like, you have no authority. You can't ask people for their documents. And she got pretty all up in their face, right? They left the bus alone. What was encouraging for me reading that was that this was an African-American woman who did not speak Spanish, but she put herself out there, right? And I think that's going to be the true test, right, for a lot of us, to really be able to put ourselves out there, educate ourselves, educate our families, our communities about what could happen, what DHS can and cannot do in our communities, right, and to actually, like, speak up for those who are too scared to speak up right now. So that's the kind of comments that I want to see from all of you who are watching. What should we be talking about? Should we be coming out to your school, your community group, your church to talk about these things, to try to organize and strategize? What's our response? Because I am getting really irritated with Facebook shares, right? Everyone wants to share the latest story, but no one's actually out there being uncomfortable. And I think that's kind of where we're at, right?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not trying to throw myself out there. I'm trying to lose myself in the work and actually try to get results for a lot of our clients, especially I feel like USCIS is denying a lot of applications and stuff for example, they denied an adjustment of status work permit. No, it got returned. saying that she had to pay the government fees, and I was like, no, wait. The instructions and the policy says that somebody who's applying for adjustment of status does not have to pay for that work permit, and not even a renewal, right? Because it's not her fault that they're taking over a year to adjudicate her application. So she's patiently waiting, paying her taxes, being a good citizen, and now you're telling me that she has to pay you, and then send it back to me, and then tell me that I'm wrong, and the instructions are clearly saying otherwise. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on their front. I feel like they're just trying to deny a lot of stuff or return a lot of applications, but we're trying our best. I feel like that's where I want to like fight policy a lot, mostly because a lot of officers I feel like are maybe do not understand the rules or maybe are just being told, hey, I don't just send it back. We're right. They're not right. Send it back. So, but I understand. I feel you saying that we're all on Facebook, and we're not actually out in the streets marching. And I don't know what's going on there. Well, I'm seeing people out in the streets.
I just don't know what it's gonna take for people to do a little bit more, right? Like we had a fundraiser for 2 of our asylum kids. I mean, these are kids, right? Like everybody in their family has been killed.
Yeah.
And so we were able to raise money for their medical exams because they have to pay for medical exams even though they're like 5. I think the easy stuff is getting done. I'm signing a petition. I'm sharing this article. I'm talking to people about it. But the real work, the hard work, I don't know where that comes from, right? And we're all super busy. We all have jobs and families, but I just start to think about like what would happen if I didn't have my daughter, right? Like what would happen if I had to choose between leaving a situation, right, and having to stay in that situation because they're gonna take my kid away, right? Like it's just like a constant struggle that as mothers, as fathers, right? Like we always want what's best for our children, and then so when we make that choice to leave a situation because for sure something's going to happen, even if it's just economics, right? We do that because we want what's best for our children, and it just seems barbaric that we would take these small children away from their families and put them in these like horrible conditions. And all those pictures, I mean people who are comparing it to concentration camps and everything else, I think they're on point, right? Like that's exactly what it looks like. And who could see those pictures and not feel horrible about the stuff that we're doing as a country? I don't know.
And then within the same breath talk about freedom. No, I definitely understand that part. That's why that what happened in the bus was so empowering, at least for me. A woman who didn't speak Spanish, who used her phone to Google, and she mentioned how afraid the person who was sitting right next to her was, and like how she felt she needed to protect that lady. I'm like, I feel that's what we have to start doing, especially for some of us who were born here and have that privilege of not feeling that fear of like, is immigration, is ICE going to come to my home and rip me away from my family and stuff. And the tactics that ICE is using is going beyond law breaking, in my opinion. Using like fake calls, dressing up like firemen. There was one of our clients told us that an ICE officer dressed like an fireman knocked on his door, and because he was a fireman, he opened it believing there was a fire, and then he took off his jacket and it was ICE. I was like, these tactics to me are illegal. I don't think they're not even used in criminal law. I think a judge would throw that out of court if it was like there was no proper procedure followed.
Right.
And so it goes into empowerment. So to me, it's like, I think it's standing up. So when we see stuff like that, let's not be bystanders, and let's actually like remind everybody that they don't have to show their identity. And then that lady who knew her rights, like we all have to learn our rights. She straight up knew that we were 100 miles away. She was 100 miles away from the border, meaning that the Border Patrol had no legal right to stop that bus or ask for any documents, right? How many of us actually know that and be able to implement that if that occasion ever arose?
I mean, but and one of the comments on that article was, I think it begs the question: what is the policy for Greyhound, right, to allow that? These are paying customers. These are people who handed over their money to have safe transport, and here you are stopping for ICE. I mean, can you do that? Should you do that? Can a private company basically say you have no warrant, you can't get on my bus, right?
That also goes into education, even for the bus driver, right? Because even if it, like a Greyhound was coming,
if you're a bus driver, I want to talk to you.
If they had to stop it, but if that bus driver knew, at least a little bit of the law and stuff, just like that woman, then he probably would have, also said the same thing. We don't know, but again, it's the fact that someone was so empowered and knew a little bit of the law or knew about her rights and implemented. And I think that's important. It's like, it's not about, sometimes we jump the gun and sometimes we scream at officers and stuff, but when you know you're right and you know that the law is backing you up, then exercise that. And she did amazing work. And everybody in that bus, in a way, left more empowered because now, they know that Border Patrol can't be stopping anybody 100 miles away from the border. But what my question is be like, what happened? Would they be able to stop you like by the airport?
They're supposed to be able to.
For those that live around
right.
LAX.
Well, no. If you're on LAX territory, right? Like if you're within a terminal, walking outside of the airport, they're supposed to have ultimate jurisdiction, right? It's discretionary even whether they allow an attorney to be at the airport. But no, I mean, if you're just taking the bus to work, right, but you happen to pass by the 405 Sepulveda, then you're okay, right? It's within 100 miles from the border that they now have. If they suspect that you are trying to come in, they could just take you out, an expedited removal, take you out and no questions asked, that sort of thing. So, and I'm not looking at Victor because I'm looking at the camera. He's over on my side, but I can see him through the Mac.
In my facial expressions. In
his facial expressions. But yeah, so I just want to hear from you guys. Are you interested in a June 29 action at the federal building to support moms and their children and families from being separated? We want to come out and talk about that. But also, are you interested in having us come out to talk to you? Are you interested in volunteering? There's a bunch of people trying to organize around some of these issues. Should we be talking about stuff, outside of what we mentioned today? What's the role of an ally? What's the role of someone who can travel and do things that others can't? I mean, there is a real fear in our community. You can't get on an airplane, you can't get on a bus, you can't get anywhere, so you're basically locked, right? Like you can't go anywhere. And if they can just show up to your house, I mean, there's a lot of people who are out there really in fear that they're next, right? And how do we deal with that? How do we bring in some social workers and some psychologists and other people in the community to really, really talk about these issues? So if you're out there and you want to do like a roundtable with us, like I'd love to have people from other areas also talk about these issues because it's affecting our community. But that's it. I think we kept it under 30 minutes. We're going to do one in Spanish and then we're going to take off. But if you want to hear from us, please give us a call, 323-617-4700, or hit us up on our Facebook or our YouTube page. Thank you so much for joining us.